I think Wentz starts this week, and if he has another good start, we might be talking about him as the starter moving forward, which would just be a boost for Jefferson's overall outlook and production.
All right, Jacob, let's try something new today with a new segment about projections. I want to call this Big Jake's Big Breaks, and we're going to talk about projections higher or lower on the breaks. So you can either have a good break or a bad break this week. So I want to start with Bears wide receiver DJ Moore. It's currently projected 12 fantasy points. Do you think that DJ Moore is higher or lower?
I think he goes higher this week. The Raiders have been weaker against fantasy receivers. They're allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game. And we've seen, Rome Odunze's kind of emerge as the number 1 receiver in Chicago. But I think Ben Johnson is going to want to get DJ Moore involved. We've seen him work out of the backfield a little bit too, kind of as a compliment to DeAndre Swift. He's gotten some carries. So I think the fact that they're trying to get the ball in his hands is a good sign. So I think he's going to break out eventually. This seems like a good matchup to do so in. So I think he goes over this kind of 12-point total.
All right, Jacob, let's move on to Arizona, and a pretty perplexing team to see, but you have Cardinals running back Trey Benson here. He's projected with 12 fantasy points. Do you see him as a higher or lower this week?
So I'm going to go lower on Trey Benson for one simple reason. The Seahawks have yet to allow a touchdown to a running back this season, either on the ground or through the air. Now, I know people in PPR leagues might look at the Seahawks defense and say, hey, they've given up, 22 receptions, 234 yards through the air to running backs. So shouldn't that spell good news for Trey Benson? In PPR leagues, it's a maybe for me. He should have the volume with James Conner out for the season with that ankle injury. But without a touchdown, to be able to count on that, I'm just not convinced he's going to go over this total. So I'm going to go with the lower here and just say, hey, this is a short week against tough defense. It's really hard to back guys in that circumstance, even if they have volume.
All right, Jacob, let's go over to New York, and we have Malik Neighbors here projected at 15. Obviously, the quarterback changed. Jackson Dart starting, but playing against the Chargers defense in week 4, that is a tough task for any rookie or just any offense in general. So you see Malik Neighbors is higher or lower than 15 points?
So I have Malik Neighbors going over this total, and it's for, again, a simple reason. He was bottled up by the Chiefs last week. He only had 2 total catches. I don't even think he caught a pass in the first half. So I think the Giants are going to look at that and say, hey, look at how bad our offense was with Malik Neighbors kind of being limited. We can't continue to just lean on Cam Scatterboo to move the ball here. So I think Brian Daboll is going to try to scheme up a lot of touches early in the game for Neighbors to try to get Jackson Dart more comfortable. And I think that, you look at that Chargers defense, it's obviously a good unit. Their cornerbacks are playing very well. But if Jesse Minter focuses on taking away the run and trying to make Jackson Dart beat them through the air, I think there will be some opportunities to get Malik Neighbors the ball and make some plays downfield. So I'm going to back Neighbors in this matchup. And maybe it's just a situation where the Chargers get a big lead and the Giants get some garbage time points. But I think you have to fire him up with confidence in this matchup and just say, hey, Dart should at least be an upgrade over what Russell Wilson provided them.
So from one star wide receiver with quarterback issues to another star wide receiver and quarterback issues. And that's Ja'Marr Chase out in Cincinnati, Jacob. And he's currently projected with 13 points for this week. You think that's a higher or lower?
Yeah, I'm going to go lower on this one. And this is more of a vote of no confidence in Jake Browning than it is anything about Ja'Marr Chase. And it's not even necessarily that Browning's a bad backup quarterback. I think he's fine in that role. But the Bengals offensive line, if you watch the tape against the Vikings, was so bad. They could not generate any sort of push in the running game, any sort of push in pass blocking. So he's going to be under pressure a lot behind that unit, Jake Browning is. And this Denver unit has the second highest pressure rate in the NFL at 50.4%. And they have Patrick Surtain available to guard Ja'Marr Chase. So, if Browning's under a lot of pressure and Surtain is matching up with Chase a lot, I think it's going to be very hard for him to have a big game. So I'm going to go lower than his projected 13 points.
And from star wide receivers, Jacob, to the star down in Dallas, and we're looking at George Pickens now. And with CeeDee Lamb on the shelf with the ankle injury, you see George Pickens projected at 12 fantasy points this week. Are you going to say that's a higher or lower?
I'm going to go higher on this one. And I just want to point out a weird stat about George Pickens. Back-to-back weeks, he has finished the game with exactly 5 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. So that's kind of the epitome of consistency here. And if he does that again, he'll go over this projected total of 12. Now, I get that that may not happen. The Packers defense has been very good this year, but I just think that you have to back him because he's a touchdown threat, Pickens, and because CeeDee Lamb is out. I think Dak Prescott might force feed him the ball a little bit more. And, you know, we've seen Jake Ferguson get a ton of targets, but there isn't really another receiver outside of Pickens who's going to get a ton of targets. So I think you back Pickens in this matchup, despite it being a tough one. Say, hey, if this guy can get me a touchdown, he should get enough volume of receptions in addition to that to have a really high quality fantasy day.
All right, Jacob, let's go to Minnesota real quick. And we saw Carson Wentz had a pretty presentable outing in J.J. McCarthy's absence. What does this mean for Justin Jefferson moving forward?
Yeah, so I think as long as J.J. McCarthy remains out, Justin Jefferson actually has a higher ceiling, solely because Carson Wentz is an experienced quarterback. And I know a lot of fans will look at him and say, oh, he isn't the player he was in 2017 when he was on track to win the MVP before he tore his ACL. But all he needs to be in Kevin O'Connell's system is a steady, productive quarterback who can distribute the ball to his wide receivers. Wentz showed against the Bengals he's more than capable of that. He should get more comfortable as he gets more reps in this system. Keep in mind, he's only been in with that team for a few weeks. And I also think Jefferson is going to be aided by the return of Jordan Addison. Defenses won't be able to pay exclusive attention to Jefferson like they were with Addison out of the lineup. So I think things are really looking up for Jefferson. And I think Wentz starts this week. And if he has another good start, we might be talking about him as the starter moving forward, which would just be a boost for Jefferson's overall outlook and production.